Happy Sunday morning. Welcome, folks. Glad to have you here this morning. Hope your morning is bright, sunshiny, and crisp like mine. But it is a little cool downstairs. It's not even winter yet, and it's cool down here. So it's going to be an interesting winter to see how the heat does in my downstairs studio and master bedroom and the family room that's over there. So we'll have to incorporate small heater. It's not freezing or anything. It's just cool down here. How about your house? You ready for winter? You ready for heating oil prices? You ready for the cost of living that's going up? Hopefully, we'll start seeing some decrease in that after the elections. You ready to vote on Tuesday? Don't not vote because you think either one side or the other, whichever one you're on, is voting, and so you don't need to, or whatever. Go out and vote. Go get it done. It's part of the process. You have to participate in your country. What the United States possesses above many other countries out there is our ability to go vote and cast our vote freely. Does that mean there's never been tampering or there's never been problems with an election? No, it doesn't mean that. But it means overall that our system works. And when it doesn't work, we find ways to plug those holes. When good for Minnesota? I'm not sure what you mean there, Chief. But when good for Minnesota? You talk about the cold? Oh, I'm not ready for winter. Oh, I see what you said there, Romeldian, a little earlier. Yeah, winter, winter's pretty. I kind of like the change of the seasons and all that, but I really don't like snow and ice. I've grown weary of them. It's not my thing anymore. So good morning to everybody. Kenny LaFarve, good to see you. And Romeldian, good to see you. Elderberry, good to see you as well. Who we're not seeing is my wife. She's awake. She's upstairs in one of the bedrooms upstairs, watching TV with one of the kids. She's not quite with it yet, I think. So we'll just see if she wanders in today at all. Hey, Susie Q. Good to see you. And, of course, earlier on, we had Dave Potter and Philip Blair were here. And my screen time was up 50% last week. No, that's interesting. I just got that from some notification. Up by 50%. That's interesting. I didn't think I spent any more time or less time last week on the internet than I do, or on my computer, screen time, than I do any other time. So, Grumpy Stack is late. You're late, Grumpy Stack. So sorry to see you so late. But you're here. That's the important thing. Potter is still, Uncle Dave is still getting his second cup of coffee. I actually tried a little experiment today because I do my French roast, my French press. I grind the beans lightly and I put a lot in there this morning. So I drank the about 1 3/4 cups that come out of that little carafe I have. I got to get a bigger carafe. And so I thought, rather than grind more beans, because I have a lot of beans in there, let's just put these beans back through some more water. Oh, I got stuff all over me today. That's from cleaning the kitchen early. No, I wasn't. I didn't miss the fall back on daylight savings time. I just woke up at 4:30. So maybe that would have been 5:30 yesterday. So I just put more hot water, boiling water through the old grinds, not the old ones, the about hour old grinds. And it's not too bad. It's a little lighter than the first batch. Dave Potter's been up since 7:30 and wanted to paint today. Why aren't you over here? I'm going to do that headboard this week. I want to make sure, though, when I do a project like that, the headboard, I'm going to paint a headboard mural on my bedroom wall over there. And I've got to do it during the daytime because Raini goes to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. And so it's really tough to paint at night. So I got to do it during the day. But That's the painting I want to get done this week. Kendall Blanchard's been up since 2:30. So you started drafting. Nice. Is that a sports thing or is that a drawing thing? Let's see. Yeah, I can project it on the wall. I thought of freehanding it too, just getting up there and painting my outline and going in and detailing. So I sometimes will do that when I paint. I like to, since this is a headboard, it's going to look like a headboard with two uprights. It's going to have a statue in the middle with the arms spread out. Not a Mother Mary, not a Mother Goddess, just a androgynous looking female statue. Well, maybe not androgynous, a non-committal female statue. And then start painting in all the knotwork in the curlicues and the wood and all of that stuff. And then I work my way out from the black background. So I paint black outline and black background, and then I start adding in color and building it out and putting in finally, my final highlights and all of that. Because for me, that's how I gain that realistic look. If you saw the some of the paintings that Dave and I did over at the Masonic Hall, I did one of the doors with the big bolts on it, and I wanted to make sure the light that's over the door reflected on those knots. And so it's just flat, two-dimensional painting made to look three-dimensional. So a trompe-l'oeil, they call it in France. Androgynous is its pronoun going to be they. That made sense. I'm trying to decipher it. Androgynous is its pronoun going to be they. Is its pronoun going to be they because it's androgynous? No, it'll definitely be a woman. So it's not really, I used the wrong word. It's not androgynous because you'll be able to tell it's a woman. It could be a spirit goddess. It could be Mother Mary if you're Catholic. Stuff like that. It'll be a fun painting, I think. And we'll see how it goes. Coffee. So, on the election thing, are you all planning to go vote day after tomorrow? You need to. It's your right. Now, remember, there's something I'm seeing an awful lot coming from the left. It's their message when they can't speak to the things that are distressing most Americans, and that's the economy, gas prices, crime, the border. These are all things that are tough issues, but you don't see the left really addressing any of those. They'll give it a handoff, a brandish, and then they will talk about democracy. Do you want to have democracy? They'll say, if you vote for the other side, you won't have democracy. If you vote for Republicans, you won't have democracy. If you vote for the right, you won't have democracy. They will take away your democracy, and they will take away your Social Security, and they will, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all I found is, hey, if you want there to be death, mayhem, tyranny, and a totalitarianism, vote for the Republicans. There's the conclusion that they've given you. But the left is also saying that this election is all about democracy. It's all about saving democracy in our country. Vote for democracy, they're saying. And the problem is you can't vote in democracy. The voting process we have is an outward demonstration of our democracy, because you can vote any way you want. Nobody's forcing you to vote in any direction. So when you go out and vote for, I'll ask the old question that Ronald Reagan, I think, brought up for the first time way back 40 years ago. He says, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And that's a good question to get started with. Ask yourself if you're better off. Ask yourself if the existing president is one that needs the support to complete his agenda or further his agenda, or not really his agenda, the agenda of the people who are his handlers. And I frankly don't think Biden is in tune or in touch with what his agenda is. It's all being pushed and promoted by his handlers and by his administration. So you have to ask yourself, what am I going to vote for? What do I want to have? What do I need to have? What does our country need? What is democracy? Democracy is your right to go out and vote your mind, which you can do this election. The left is telling us there's all kinds of voter suppression. Boy, for the voter suppression we have, there's been record off the scale numbers of preliminary voting, of voting ahead of time, and Georgia being one of them. Oh, Georgia's got suppression, voter suppression, they said, but yet for all the suppression they have more votes being cast for this election than at any other time in American history. That's not voter suppression, so far as I see. So you've got to ask yourself, who is pushing an agenda? We're being told that by the left that if you vote for the right, now, let me say this. I'm not campaigning for Republicans. I'm not a Republican. I tend to vote more Republican ever than Democrat, though. I'm an independent. But I will tell you this. Let's just use the language everybody's using. The Republicans or the Democrats. If you're going to cast your vote on Tuesday, who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote party or are you going to vote common sense? The Democrats and the left are telling you that a vote for Republicans on Tuesday, any Republican, is a vote for tyranny, a vote for a party that intends to shut down all opposition, that intends a one-rule system by one party. This is the rhetoric we're being given. Yet what are they saying? Vote one party. Vote for all Democrats, they're saying. So while they're decrying one side for saying they want to be a one party in control, what are the Democrats doing? They're saying vote one party and keep us in control. So it's all about power and control. Push that all aside. All you need to ask yourself when you go in to vote on Tuesday is what is going to be better for our country. Don't vote party. Vote your conscience, first of all. Get party out of the way. Because there are some people that are saying, I'm just voting party whether the candidate sucks or not, because I just need that party in office. I need that seat in Congress to go to that party. And so be very careful how you vote on Tuesday. And vote what you know. No, not what you think. What you know is going to better the country. And that's all I got to say about it. There's my campaigning. Grumpy Stack says 2,000 mules. I think that's probably worth looking at. So Hillary complained of a stolen election. Yeah, it's funny. You can't talk about stolen elections on any social media giant anymore, other than maybe Twitter now. You can't talk about that stuff without getting banned or censored or put in jail. Figurative jail, Facebook jail. Yet, the left can talk about it all they want about previous elections. I put up a reel a couple of weeks ago showing, it was about 20 minutes long, of all these Democrats and all these leftists and all these news media outlets that lean left that are all complaining about stolen election, and things like that. Yet the right does it, they get censured. And you're told that you can't talk about it. So, have there been stolen elections? I don't know for sure. I suspect there have been. I suspect there have been tools put in place, but I don't know. You have to decide that. So what you need to decide for right now, I wouldn't vote on January 6th, which, while, yeah, it was a bad thing that happened that day, but it was a blip in history. The left wants to paint it for political purposes as the most dire thing that was ever an attack on democracy in the United States since our inception. Really? January 6th, with over 500,000 people protesting at the Capitol, and out of those 500,000, a mere handful, a mere fraction of those people, under 150 people, I think it was, that got into the Capitol, and of those, a couple dozen that did anything untoward or wrong. And the only one who died as a direct result of that day was one of the protesters. So you start looking at this and you start looking at the facts behind it all. That event is being used. And why has it been pushed so hard by the left? Because they are saying that the Republicans want to take away your democracy. And that's one of their hinge pins. And you notice lately, it hasn't been said as much lately, has it? They found that it's falling flat on America because citizens pretty much know the difference. They're pretty much, stop lying to us. We're savvy. We are tech savvy. We are information savvy. And we know what the hell is going on. So, Uncle Dave.
Hey. How are you today?
I'm good. What's shaking?
Just listening to you. You know,
I'm worth listening to today.
Hillary's been bitching since 2016
Oh my
that
God.
the election was stolen. Stacey Abrams, over a year, well, the entire term of this other governor, that she won that election, blah, blah,
How
blah.
do people vote for these? How do these people get support?
They were bitching about Trump 2 days after the election. Well, he's saying it was stolen. Well, you've been saying it for like 4 years.
Did you know that the first of 9 attempts to impeach President Trump started on day 2 of his term?
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Unreal.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Kendall Blanchard says, I think less stolen elections since digital age than all write-in elections. Maybe. I don't know for sure. All I know is I'm going to go to the polls and vote. And it might be an inconvenience for my day, but it's not an inconvenience for my country. Sorry,
I would like to see,
I was talking.
And they'd have to figure out a way that you could only cast a vote once. Not for the elections, but every time there's a bill on the floor, I would love it if citizens could go in and vote. Not to pass it as law. You'd still go by the senator's vote or the congressman's vote. But if, let's say, Minnesota says we should have abortion, okay, and 80% of the votes come in for it, and the senator votes against it, well, then he's not doing his job to vote.
He's not representing his constituency.
Exactly.
And of course, as we all know, we are a constitutionally limited representative republic.
Yeah.
We elect representatives to cast our vote. Now, what do we do if those representatives fall astray of what the majority wants them to do? They vote them out. So
and that way you'd have a record. You could go back and say, well, the populace voted this direction, but the senator or the congressman voted that direction and stuff. And because that to me is more important than whether or not they vote the way their party's president is voting.
Yes.
Okay. If for someone to say, well, he voted with the president on almost every bill. Well, where did the populace of his state want him to vote? That's more important to me.
And
regardless of party, it's more important that they are doing the will of the people that sent them there.
Yes.
Rather than whether or not it's in the party or out of the party and supporting the president.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, of course, we can elect people and then find that they've done something differently than why we elected them. That's why we have the ability, the freedom, the democracy in place to vote them out. If you agree with Joe Biden as president, if you agree with his agenda, if you agree with the stuff that they try to pass legislation on, the direction they're taking this country, then you know what? You should be happy and vote for them if that's your conscience, if that's what you believe. My job and the jobs of other people would be to convince you before you vote that that's a wrong way to vote. Now, most people have their minds made up already about everything. I think there are very few undecided people out there. I think the only indecision comes when you say, I've always voted this party, and now I can't, in good conscience, vote this party because of what they've done. but I
Yeah.
don't want to vote for the other party because I don't believe in their ideology. What do you do when you're in that quagmire? You end up voting your party. That's what ends up happening. I think the only undecideds are people that are not satisfied with the party they voted for, and then you get.
And I feel bad for those Democrats.
I do too, because you know what? I don't think parties should dictate what you know is right and wrong.
Well,
If
let's
your
face it,
party starts to drift away,
the last election had more to do with people voting against somebody they were
yes,
unhappy.
yes,
They weren't even unhappy with his policy. They were mad at because they didn't like his personality.
they didn't like him as president. Most of those people, I would say, I remember in the last election, I put up a little cartoon I saw. It was just two faces, line drawing faces looking at each other. And the one guy says, "Can I tell you why I'm voting the way I'm voting?" And the other guy says, "Yes, I would love to hear everything you have to say about why I should vote for your party. But with one exception, you have to leave the name Trump out of it." And the next frame, it shows the guy steaming and going mad. So, that was pretty much it. It's like, don't tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you're going to do. And this is the Democrats right now. Their whole campaign has shifted to, and you can see that to me is what I'm seeing on the Democrats side is what I would classify as complete and utter desperation, knowing they're probably going to be swept over on Tuesday. They're going for you can't vote the other party. They will take away your democracy.
Which I don't understand. That's so contrary to all the history that's out there.
I know. I know.
Levine was just on the morning show here a little bit ago, and he pointed out, it's the Democrats that wanted to secede and form their own country and leave the Union. It's the Democrats that stood in the way of civil rights and letting your kids go to a white school. It's the it's just over and over and over again. And Obama was giving a speech the other day, and he was saying, hey, if you vote for them, you're going to have the government telling you what books can be in school, and you're going to have the government telling you how to think. If you don't think our way, you could go to jail and all this stuff. And it's like,
right.
Whoa. Isn't that what you're doing? You're putting people.
That's exactly what you're doing.
All those people that are in jail for the 6th without a trial, sitting in jail,
sitting
bail,
in jail for 2 years.
Murderers out on bail within hours of them getting arrested. All those people are sitting there because they think differently than the Democrats. Half the people that are in there didn't even go into the Capitol. They were at the Capitol, but they didn't go into the building. And they're going and arresting people. We know you were at this speech. Well, who cares if I was at the speech? I didn't go down to the Capitol.
That's democracy. I have a right to be there.
Yeah. It's just it's absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And the thing is, they're not just arresting people who are there; they're targeting people.
Yes.
Hang on 1 second. Yes, naked little girl. Why are you standing in my studio naked? What do you need? What? You're saying hi to Dave, Uncle Dave? That's you guessed it, Ellery, the naked bird. Why don't you go put some clothes on?
Hello, little cherub. You can't come on the camera with nakedness.
Did you hear that chortle on the way out? She said, and ran out of the room. So, Kendall, I saw your thing saying you got to go do the dump run, but stick around as long as you can, or come back when you're back. We own the Capitol building. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's the people's house.
Well, even Thomas Jefferson said, and I'll apply it here, liberty too must be limited in order to be possessed. I get that. We have to have rules and regulations. We own the Capitol building, but we can't just go, hey, can I have keys so I can come and have a pool party in the rotunda at 2 a.m.?
I think going into Nancy's office and shuffling through her desk, wrong. I think going into the Capitol chamber, the Senate chamber, and sitting in the chairs and kicking your feet up on desks that are irreverent to our history, totally wrong.
Now, one thing I
all
noticed
of
with
that.
all those people that were let into we've all seen the videos of
Yeah.
the police letting people come in. These were the rioters, by the way, according to the news. But they all walked in there looking around. One thing I noticed that I thought was very outstanding. Keep in the back of your mind what happens with statues being destroyed, art being destroyed. Minneapolis, the day of fire in Minneapolis for George Floyd. You look at all
Days
those
of
things.
fire
What
out in
happened?
Portland.
What happened in Portland? What happened in the United States Capitol the day all those people were let in? How many paintings in the Hall of Art, or paintings they call it, how many were destroyed? Zero. How many statues were defaced? Zero. Nobody did anything. The worst thing that got done, other than some numbnuts going into Nancy Pelosi's office and rummaging through her papers and stealing laptops, what else happened there? A rotunda, not rotunda, a lectern, the speaker's lectern got tipped over. Somebody did that and then picked it, and then a guy picked it up, carried it out, and set it down in the middle of the rotunda because it got knocked over. I saw him interviewed. He said, I didn't knock that over. He says, I picked it up and I put it in the middle of the rotunda, stood it up because somebody knocked it over. You saw people in the video. They're walking in these lines through the rotunda, and some of the people are stopping and they're straightening the posts that have the velvet ropes so you can follow that path. I saw a couple of people, they stopped and they straightened a couple of them because they were knocked a little bit out of place. And so, the whole January 6th thing, I'm sorry, Democrats, it's an empty, hollow whistle.
And with all of those people that came in and the arrests that happened that day for people that had transgressed people's offices and things like that, not a single weapon.
Nope. Now they're finding out that there were weapons on some people.
Were the police.
Yep. That's it. And so,
and the only police officer that died had a heart attack and was helped by people that were part of the insurrection.
Yeah. And you know what? Did the insurrection cause that? Maybe. Maybe he was so worked up and so hyped up. I've got heart problems. I know how being hyped up and
what have they said about it? They've said he was shot. They've said he was beat over the head with a fire extinguisher. They've said all kinds of stuff. And the reality is he had a stroke or a heart attack and was assisted by people and aided in getting out of there by people that were part of the insurrection.
Well, that's it. And the only person killed was somebody who was not armed.
And I believe a young Navy veteran or young Air Force veteran.
Yep. With kids at home. And why was she shot? Unarmed. Because she climbed up on the side of a doorway and smashed a window or was going to try to get through a smashed window.
I think she was looking through a window.
I saw the video. She climbed up on the...
But what's crazy is the cop who was armed and they weren't armed felt threatened enough to shoot through a door.
Yeah.
At people. That's ridiculous. That's
right.
Even in your home, if someone's evaded your home, you can't shoot through a closed door.
Well, now, isn't that though shouldn't the argument be put forward? It's the same thing we hear from cops that have to stand trial because they are suspended because they shot somebody in the line of duty. And but don't they say sometimes you got a split second to make a decision? Maybe that cop, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he felt somebody was storming them and he was armed for a reason to protect the Capitol building. Maybe in that split second, in retrospect is 2020. Maybe in that split second, he felt somebody was all this crowd trying to break through the doors and he fired off a shot and killed somebody. I think that's as justifiable as a cop having to shoot somebody in a split second, having to make that split second decision. I don't know. But even on that, the Democrats would be calling if he'd have been a young black man in Chicago that was shot outside a doorway, even if he felt threatened, they'd be wanting him on desk duty. They'd want to have some sort of trial. They'd want to see the body cam footage. He needs to be better trained. He needs to be.
And
Yeah.
None of that. Just a complete whitewash.
So I look
it-
at the whole January 6th thing, and it all starts with, who are the headliners on that? Who are the people that are actually running that thing? Aren't those all the people that all they did for 4 years was try to impeach President Trump and successfully did it twice?
Yeah.
They didn't get him removed from office, but they got him
all
impeached.
of those people I'd like to see gone.
But of course, you say, and then you say, well, Trump, he got impeached twice. Well, you do realize that the people who voted for it was a one-party vote, and they were the ones in the majority.
Yeah.
They were the ones pushing it. They're the ones that voted for it. You say, well, you had a couple of Republicans vote. Yeah, maybe you did. Maybe they
Republicans in name only.
Yeah. And so you look at that and you say it was and they were asking the question even then from the right, is this the way we're going to do politics from now on?
And the what's her name? Cheney's daughter.
Yep, Liz
They're
Cheney.
all like, wow, she's a great Republican. She's standing up against Trump, blah, blah, blah. The Cheneys haven't liked Trump from day one because
she is a great Republican because she votes Democrat.
Right, but the Bushes are progressives, and Trump denounced them as progressives from day one.
Yep.
And so the Bushes and the Cheneys, they don't like Trump. They never have. And this is all about going after Trump. It has nothing to do about democracy or anything like that. The Democrats wanted to hang Cheney for 4 years.
Yeah, they did.
So
Cheney was a monster.
As far as they were concerned,
according to the left. So anyway, all this stuff, we can rehash this stuff over and over again. And it's like I said, Kenny Bellows, KB, on his show the other day. I said, we talk about the same things over and over again. I said, but that's because we keep hearing them over and over again. And we don't come in here to be negative, because I'm very positive about all this. If this sounds like negative politicking to you, don't take it that way. We're discussing what's been laid out on the platter. And to not discuss this, conservatives, here's the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals that came out in the 60s. What did he say? He said, you make the other side fight what you have to say. You throw out something to make them have to defend it.
Well, and you accuse them of what you're guilty of.
Yep. And you keep at it was another one of his rules. You keep at it. You keep that pressure on. So all that other person has time to do is defend himself from your charge. And so that's where what seems like negativity comes into play.
Well, and I've always said this when it comes to the Democrats in office, and I specify it like that: the Democrats in office, the leadership, the people that are driving the train, because it's not Joe Blow the plumber.
By the way, I need one of those sofas that's on the TV in your background on your computer. Yeah. I want one of those for our family room.
Okay, I'll put it on the list.
Sorry to interrupt you right there, but before the commercial was off, I was going to point it out.
But what I see is they have forever accused their opponents of whatever they're most guilty of.
Yes.
And what you really need to do, and they do it for two reasons. A, if the opponent says, I didn't do that, you did that, they sound like idiots.
Yep.
Trying to reverse the argument. And it makes the people think, oh, well, they must be guilty of this. But what you need to do every time a Democrat in any office accuses their opponent of something, step back, look at it from the outside, and look at their history. Chances are they're doing that. And I think part of it is they think, well, we do this all the time as a matter of course, so they must do it too.
Yes.
Not realizing that, no, you guys are just bad people. I love this guy I came across the other day on YouTube. No, I take it back. It wasn't YouTube. He's on Instagram, I think. His name is the Gay Republican, and I have a lot of friends that are gay that are Republicans and
are conservatives, at least.
Yeah. And what's funny is he was pointing out that they think they're the resistance, they're the rebels but really, they're the empire. You're the bad guy in this.
Yeah.
You need to look in the mirror and realize you're the empire.
Yes.
And it's crazy. It's
when you've
because
got
their people will do what the media tells them, and the media is controlled by the upper end of the Liberal Party, and so they only write or tell you what the party wants you to hear.
right.
There's no free thought in most media. There's conservatives have a handful of newspapers, kind of dominate talk radio, and libs have tried for years to get a decent show that'll pick up ratings, but they always fall through and fail. The only saving grace they had is when Rush passed away. It left a big void, but that's been filled by a whole bunch of young conservatives that have stepped forward and said, "Nope, I got this."
Dan Bongino,
Exactly.
Who is
Number
it?
one in my head.
The guys that fill Rush's slot on the local radio, the two guys, Sexton, Buck Sexton,
Yeah.
and the other guy. I'm sorry. I'm sure
can't
they're
think of his
listening
name
to my
either,
show and offended because I forgot the other guy's name. So, yeah, and you know, I have watched our numbers here since I've been talking go down, cutting about half of just people actively in the chat room. And I don't know if it's because we're talking about the political scene in America, but if you think that a show like mine in general that covers current events as well as history and archaeology and spirituality and all that can't take a day to talk about, I don't think I've talked about the elections yet, other than to say in scant brief mentions, hey, make sure you go out and vote next Tuesday or on election day or whenever, as far back as it goes. So if you like the show in general, stick around. Don't just tune it in and then tune out because, they're talking politics. We're talking about our nation. There's a big difference.
There's nothing more important than the vote coming up on Tuesday.
That's right. This is probably one of the most important midterm elections since I've been an adult. So I think it's very important because you're seeing an agenda that's been building out there in the populace. The woke agenda is some of the hot air that lifts that balloon. And so you're seeing a lot of that out there that's been building this up to this election. We're supposed to be a country who cares about people. Now, let me say something about that real quickly, is that, yes, we have to have compassion. Yes, we have to care. Yes, we have to care about who we offend or who takes offense at our words. We have to be, our speech has to be good and above board. I get that. I understand all that. But when you make that your agenda, you're missing the fact that government exists. The federal government exists for basically two reasons: to protect our borders and to defend our country. And those are really the only two reasons it exists. And the rest is superfluous and fluff and things that we add in. So when you have things like Roe v. Wade, that the Supreme Court said doesn't belong in the federal government, they're spot on no matter what the hell your point of view is. It doesn't matter if you're pro or against. It doesn't belong under the purview of the federal government. That's it. Boom, bang. And I like to use the illustration, if you will, or the example of the DOMA Act. You had the Religious Right pushing for the Defense of Marriage Act. They wanted that added to the Constitution. And it's not a constitutional issue. I see we have my dear friend, lovely, amazing Wendy is in the wings. I'm going to bring her in.
I want to say something while you're bringing Wendy in. So
she's in.
This election is not just important for the national stuff that's happening. It's important for your mayoral races. It's important for your city councils, your school boards, all of that.
Sorry about that.
Hey, Wendy, how are you, sweetheart?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Oh, for a second, I thought we didn't have audio on you, but okay.
Oh, she's got audio.
She was lipping, and I was like, I'm not hearing anything. I see her lips moving, but I don't hear.
No, I'm listening to you boys.
But I also want to say this based on what you said about offense. I would say that the majority of comics out there lean left.
Yeah.
Okay. And almost everyone to a T will tell you that the most dangerous thing going on in our society right now is this whole woke thing and canceling people because they said something that offended me. You don't have a right not to be offended. And when you start worrying about this person said that or that person said this and canceling people out, you start to affect a society in a very severe way.
So I want to say, hey, wake up, grow up a little bit, people. If you live in a free society that allows you to speak freely, you might run the risk of having somebody offend your sensibilities or your points of view or your ideologies.
Comics
That's
that come out there, comics that come out there and do stuff like, I look at Dave Chappelle, I look at Eddie Murphy, I look at
comedy capitalizes on offending people.
It does, and it does this for a reason. Okay, it makes you sit back and yes, it's a humorous story. It makes you laugh, but it also makes you go, "Oh, I see why that you're offended by that, or I see why that's wrong." Okay, so that you in your personal life can adjust yourself so you're not dropping the N-word or you're not doing whatever, even if you didn't mean offense by it. And it also takes these people like the Deep South, the KKKers and people like that, and makes them sit back and go, "Oh, well, I guess I never looked at it that way before." You know, it can open people's brains up and make them rethink their lives and make changes and course corrections.
Bingo. What do you think, Wendy?
I've just been listening on out over here, and I thought I'd just come in and say hello. Very interesting subject because it's going everywhere, isn't it?
There is one other extremely important thing happening on Tuesday.
Got the finger.
and that is you two have your second show coming on. The first one was awesome.
That's right.
Did you like it, Dave?
I did like it. Will this one be live so I can chat with you? Or
we're going live this Tuesday. Live.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You're live right now.
I know, but it's just like, you know, we're going live, and it was really good fun, you know, wasn't it? It was really good fun the other day.
Great fun.
And literally, I have to go like this so I don't come out my camera because it's like
I know I'm doing the right thing.
But it's like, no, we had a great time, and we're really looking forward. And I can't possibly tell you what the subject is because it's top secret, but it's going to be a good one.
It's top secret-ish.
It's going to be good.
Hi.
Dad, did my phone thing get submitted?
Playing with my line here.
I'm on radio.
When are we going to send this?
Oh, you have wine. Oh, yeah, because it's not morning. I'm like, well, it's kind of early for wine.
No,
I'll talk to you about it.
It's afternoon here.
Hello, Rowan. How are you?
What you guys are saying, it's we have it here. It's just as much. Only I think that just as many people fight over here to not have that and be cancelled out.
Are you being grumpy girl this morning?
You what, love?
I said, is Rowan being a grumpy girl this morning?
No. I don't know why when they know I'm on radio, or broadcasting or any kind, why that's when they want to come down and they know. They know.
What's with the hat?
They weren't down there for an hour while you were putting books away.
Did you order my thing yet? Did you do this thing for my phone insurance? And it's like, why are you asking me right now? Do you see him?
What's with the hat, buddy? What's with the hat?
He's cold in his studio.
Oh, yeah, it's cold today.
I can see you look cold. There you go. Look, there you are.
I forgot to put on my wig. So
you don't need one.
I can make you a wig.
Look, he's got all the tools you'll ever need. Look, that.
I'd rather have Wendy
ready for December Day. Come on.
I'm actually getting ready to cut this off.
Are you going to go for it?
I have just a few more days in office. I got to get my official portrait taken, and then I'm out.
All right.
Because what we really want to know is that you're actually a secret buying things on the TV behind you, because I can see like things for sale.
Yeah, I could shut it off.
Well, actually, that's probably a news channel that you watch.
It is a news
every
channel,
4 minutes. They have 4 minutes worth of ads.
Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's
4
like, really?
minutes.
I'll watch stuff sometimes and I'm like, I'm not watching this. I don't have time. You just wasted an hour of mine giving me 12 minutes of news.
No.
Well, but see, that's the problem with the 24-hour news cycle. There's not 24 hours worth of news worth reporting. So,
and I also understand the need for sponsors to support your very expensive shows. I don't care what news network you are. If you're a bigwig on one of the big news channels, you're making millions of dollars. Somebody's got to pay that bill.
The concept behind it was never you're going to sit and watch that news all day long. It was you can tune in at any time for 15 minutes and get all the news you need.
Oh, what?
Not that there's that many
You
interesting
get a wheel over your toe
these days. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Hello, Ellery.
Watch where you're stepping.
Don't stand on your dad. Don't stand on your dad. You'll crush important things.
She already did. So I'll send you away. I have the ability to send you away.
I'm so glad you found clothes.
So
Yes, there was a nudity going on, wasn't there, for a while?
Well, that's normal for this one. She's a little fairy child.
If you're gonna sit, you can sit
wild
still
one.
and next.
She likes to run around in her nakedness.
She did. She was naked this morning. So walking in here, I'm like, hey.
What about your weekend, Dave? What have you been doing?
No. Stop.
Me?
Don't be that way.
I have been painting.
Come and say hi, and that's about it.
Working on this.
It's looking good.
Yeah. I'm trying to capture the North Sea, and I haven't quite got it yet, but I'm much closer than what I was. So
it's sort of weird, isn't it? Because we had Guy Fawkes Night here, which I thought was kind of interesting to mention to you guys. I'm trying really hard to not.
Our lodge normally celebrates it here. We go out and do a big bonfire and burn Guy Fawkes and do all that stuff.
And for people that don't know what Guy Fawkes is, obviously there was the gunpowder treason and plot was the big.
Is that the way you're asking me if you can have my phone?
1606, something like that.
I need your phone.
And
under James, wasn't it?
May I use your phone, please?
I need to do TikToks.
May I use your phone, please,
I
dearest
need to
father
do
of mine?
TikToks.
Boy, you got an asking problem.
Ellery, not into the microphone.
Yeah.
I need to do TikToks.
You do?
Nobody needs to do TikTok.
No, nobody needs
TikTok
to
should be
do
removed
TikTok.
from all
Yes, I
computers.
do.
No. She came in and just, this is my Queen of the Universe child, and the rest of the world has to catch up with her. I need your phone, she said. I said, excuse me? Is that how
You can use
ask?
my phone, Ellery.
You can use Uncle Dave's phone. Go get it.
I should be out there. I should be out there sometime this week.
I couldn't possibly let you use my phone. There's too much damning evidence on it.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
No, I was just saying with Guy Fawkes, like we had all the fireworks last night because on the 5th of November, we celebrate Guy Fawkes Night. And obviously they were, there was a massive plot years ago with, as you know, the Catholics who wanted to get rid of the monarchy and Westminster. So they decided to put lots of gunpowder underneath it and to blow it up. But they got caught, and unfortunately, the person who was on
mute my mic
duty that night watching over it was Guy Fawkes.
If you come and ask nicely and politely, I might let you.
As did the rest of the group eventually, and they hung, drawn, and quartered him. And some say that he actually threw himself down hard on the hanging noose to make it so much quicker because of the pain.
Yeah.
So. Do you know what I mean? The pain was so horrendous, which you would be because
because they didn't hang you completely normally.
No, they would hang you
when you were drawn and quartered, they still wanted you to be alive.
They wanted you to feel it.
Oh yeah, they would hang you for a little while, so you would be in somewhere between. I don't know if it's Christmas or Good Friday, but you would be, and then they would, which the drawn and quartered is just. I mean,
did they ever? Is there history of them ever drawing and quartering women? Because I know with men, when men got done, it was, you cut off the.
I'm not sure about, but I actually know men. I think women were more, women were more, we were either drowned, we were beheaded, or we were burnt, But it's, as I said, it's such a fake that England burnt witches. We didn't. We actually
hung them.
We hung them.
Yeah, that's the same here. No witches were burned in Salem.
It was
Yeah,
just
they were all hung.
Scotland. It was Scotland that burnt the witches. And but yeah, so Guy Fawkes, poor guy, was at the end of it, was thinking, right, that's it. I'm just going to throw myself on the road.
But they wouldn't they? Because they're farther north and it's cold, and so anything you can use is fuel. So
yeah. Well, hold on and call this. Obviously, like when they sort of went from here to here, and they would pull out all your organs, and you to look at them, like this is your heart, and then everybody's seen that famous scene in Braveheart, which Mel Gibson did, which he still had the voice to say freedom.
Yeah,
very unusual to have.
Kind of hard to do, but yeah.
But it's not impossible. But yes, it would have been something.
The Vikings had that something eagle where they would
the blood eagle.
The blood eagle. They would cut your lungs out from the back and leave them attached, but they would spread them out over your shoulders on the outside.
Made it look like an eagle's wings.
Even though they're only about that big. But and if you, some of it was if you had to suffer that and you were an enemy and you did not scream or you were honored after that. Then they gave you an honorable burial, and they honored your name because you faced it with like a man, so to speak.
It'd be very hard not to. I mean, you have to be really brave not to.
I couldn't imagine.
The pain would be. I mean, for instance, the worst thing about not only being, hung, drawn, and quartered, you'd have the crowd baying for you, baying for your blood, and you would feel that energy as you're going into it. Which is, because it was awful. And so what they did is that they used his effigy to every 5th of November, we celebrate at their Houses of Parliament. Didn't get blown up, nor did the monarchy. And obviously we have all these fireworks and you can buy them all the way through October. You can buy them pretty much all year round now.
It's like the 4th of July here.
Yeah.
But obviously it's affecting like people with PTSD and animals and wildlife. A lot of animals suffer from it. But last night it was a bit of a wet night, so there wasn't that many. But when I was young, we used to see Guy. We would make a Guy to be burnt on the fire, and I used to beg my mum, please don't burn him, please don't burn him, Mama. I was like, no. So I would have to go in before they burnt Guy. But yeah, and when you saw V for Vendetta, obviously they used the face of Guy Fawkes, or what he would have kind of looked like back then. Fascinating character, really.
Yeah, folks, if you didn't know
the very first time
you see from V for Vendetta, that's a Guy Fawkes mask.
The very first time our lodge celebrated Guy Fawkes Night, one of the guys that's a carpenter said, I'll build the Guy and I'll bring it out. Really nice guy, really kind of a shy guy, but he built the frame, costumed it. I gave him some stuff to wear that was period, and did the whole thing. The clothes burnt away, and we had a burning cross in the middle of the fire.
Oh, nice. Start with a different substructure next.
They're like, let's get rid of that real quick. We're out in public with this big burning cross, all standing in a circle.
Burning cross on their front lawn.
Yeah.
Now
we do it with an X frame in this.
Yes.
But I think that what they do is each year in Guy Fawkes, they also have like there's certain fireworks that have towns that have different effigies of people they burn, and I think they use a different prime minister from time to time. And
which I can understand. I can understand.
Yeah, I get it. I think they even did Donald Trump at one time. I can't 100% say, but I know there was something like that went on. But I actually find that whole burning effigy, I've never really been a lover of it. But the fireworks, Mark always says to me, I don't understand fireworks, a couple of and it's all over. And I'm like, well, yeah, but they cost enough, that's for sure.
Morning, Pearson.
Pearson, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, and I definitely understand the not liking fireworks too much. I mean, they're enjoyable every now and then if you just want to make some noise, but honestly, they do make me nervous, being that the health hazard and
I was gonna say, being blind, I can understand it because all they are is explosions to you. You don't have the visual effect.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fun for about 5 minutes, and then you have a pain in your ears for about the rest of the day. Especially if you're close and it's, Roman candles, things like that. Those are kind of entertaining to just hold in your hand and feel it shoot off. But, it's not something that's the end of the world when it comes to entertainment. It's not bringing an evolution of entertainment around for me, anyways. And
Sure.
they do make me more nervous than I think it's worth in the end because I've heard of firework injuries, and I'm not really scared of fire, but I do have a little bit of a fear of people having that power in their hand, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Well, we do almost every year on 4th of July. We buy a bunch of fireworks, just backyard fireworks, not the ones that shoot up 100 feet in the air, but backyard fireworks, and they're all right. They're fun. The kids like them.
Adverts here anymore. They used to put these adverts on. Be careful of fireworks. Make sure they're in.
Yeah.
They don't do that anything anymore. And the only time, we've just had the Festival of Light, I think, as well over here. Then we've had Guy Fawkes, and now you're coming up to when you have New Year's Eve. There's the big show at when Big Ben obviously chimes 12, and it's but now they're using drones as well to use as well as the fireworks. But since we've had our current Lord Mayor, I have to say we used to have a really good show with great music. Now it's kind of like, yeah. So, like, how much did that cost? And it was rubbish. It's
right.
Just not like it once was. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I know. We always do a little bit of fireworks, and if anything, I find entertainment out. The little snappers you can throw down on concrete. The fun part for me is hiding those around certain places, giving people a little surprise, because I tend to be a bit of a prankster, so I'll put a couple down on the sidewalk or especially in the driveway, and that can be a little entertaining at times. I know fireworks, the little snappers, even the bigger ones that look similar to a firecracker, they're not a huge risk. I mean, they can be dangerous if thrown at somebody directly, but fireworks makes me nervous because you have a little well, I've been hit with debris from a firework before. No damage really was done in the long term, but it did give me a little bit of a burn. So I have a lot of trepidation of it because you never, like, when it happens, it puts you into shock. Like you go from like having fun to what just happened and being paranoid of it the rest of the night because after you've been hit by shrapnel from it, it tends to take the fun out of the whole experience because you start to realize that whatever's in that little firecracker could go anywhere or land just about anywhere. It's not controlled whatsoever, honestly.
Well, going with a bang is not my way of going that way.
Yeah, mine either. I don't want to drown either, though.
Oh,
all right,
Pearson. Done that. Been there, done that.
Thanks for calling in, Pearson. We'll talk to you soon, brother. All right. We should give, I think, a little tease, Wendy, of what we're going to talk about on Tuesday. Just a tease.
That's a spoiler.
You live in a part of the world that part of the world is not even the way to put it. You're not in a part of the world. You're in a city, and the environs around you and your whole country is chock full of history, and not just history and archaeology, but you go to take history and archaeology to the paranormal side. You've got ghosts, coming out your ears, and figuratively speaking. And so what Wendy's got a couple of favorite haunts, no pun intended, that she goes to. And we're going to talk about some of those sites. She's going to just give us off the top of her head a little bit about what are the Henry VIII's head of the church.
Well, Henry VIII is my favourite monarch, and will always be my favourite monarch. And I even named my dog after him. So that's how much.
That's right, Henry. What was his bishop's, his head of the church? Of the Church of what was that was
Cromwell?
Cardinal Wolsey.
Or Wolsey.
So his house that Henry VIII took away from him,
Hampton Court Palace. I mean, the thing about Henry VIII, he
Hall.
was about 6'1", 6'2", which is incredibly massive for a king back then.
Yeah.
Well, for anyone back then.
He was actually a very beautiful prince. He was supposed to be called one of the most beautiful princes of Europe.
He was a good-looking dude.
It wasn't until he actually had an accident, a jousting accident, where he was unconscious for quite a while, where his personality changed because he had head injuries, and he actually started to turn into this different person. You know, this sort of crazy, just. I don't even know if I want the right word to call him, because like a man who kills his wives, and what he did to other people was just horrendous. But he's my favorite monarch, and one of my favorite homes. I mean, he has homes. I'm sort of surrounded by what would have been a lot of his castles, a lot of what would have been his homes, because obviously they were in London, and you had Whitehall Palace, which doesn't actually exist anymore. There was a fire that took that.
And Nonsuch.
Yes, Nonsuch is right. Would have been near me as well, but sadly that is gone now as well. It was his favourite. So he would, if there was the sweating sickness or anything like that, they would come out of London going into their country. So I'm in Surrey, so Surrey and Hertfordshire and Hampshire. You'd go into different, I have to kill that, counties, which you would call, what would you call all those, province, as they say in Canada. But Hampton Court Palace was given to him by Cardinal Wolsey. And Cardinal Wolsey was...
That's a nice way to put it.
That's nice way to put it.
It was like, he actually had no choice, because actually the rumour is it was that Anne Boleyn actually said, you know how rich,
I rather like that house.
Cardinal Wolsey is, and how many palaces he owns. And it was like, oh, no, not really. And he was like, well, everything I've got is yours. So when he couldn't get the divorce for Henry from Catherine of Aragon, this is a man who's the head of the church, who had a mistress, who had a couple of children, who had a lot of power, and was in his element, basically. He had the king's ear, and the king was far too busy doing kingly things like hunting and women and everything else, drinking. So Cardinal Wolsey was the main man. So he offered to give, have anything I've got, which you would do because you were terrified. He offered to give Hampton Court Palace, and Henry said, yes, thank you very much, I'll take it. So he gave him Hampton Court Palace, and I think he hoped that it would be enough to save his life, and he didn't, and it wasn't. And he lost his life a couple of months later. And some say, as we always say over here, natural causes, but
natural cause.
Some would say that wasn't the case. But he gave it, and it is the most beautiful palace. I mean, it's, if you look at the front of it, it's very much the old style of Cardinal Wolsey. You go around to the back, and it's a completely different palace, like Renaissance, sort of William and Mary time.
Sure.
It's a completely different palace. Very much, I'm going to use the word that Mark hates, haunted, stroke active. Very, very active. You have the haunted gallery. You have the stairs where James Seymour comes down into, and with a candle flickering. You have outside in the garden. You go around there, and what
do you think of the ghost
famous
that burst
video
through the door?
that you saw a few years ago where
Skeletor.
the back doors flew open and somebody in costume pulled them back shut? And they're saying, was that ever debunked, or was that
elderberry? I've seen Henry somewhere lately, and he does. Yes, Dave does look like Henry VIII, I have to say.
Well, not with this beard, but
when you have a ghost tour there, which they're not doing this year since COVID, thank you very much. It's another thing they've stopped doing. But there was, if you go around the side of it, there are these doors that were flung open. And there was, because they're heat sensory as well, they couldn't pick anything up, but they could obviously saw the doors come open, and they saw this figure with a robe, It looked very much like, they call it Skeletor. It looked like a skeleton of some kind.
The face was very pale. Yeah.
Yeah, and the doors, swung open, and all the alarms went off, and they do. Apparently, it still goes on from time to time, and they couldn't find what it was. But when you do the ghost tour, they actually don't tell you what part you're going to, and then you're suddenly there, and they go like that, and the doors will bang open, and you'll be like, oh my god. But they still don't know. But I went to Cardinal Wolsey's, and I'll just say this quickly. In Cardinal Wolsey's closet, they call it. It's not often open, and I felt sick when I went in there. I felt really, really sick. Like I wanted to throw up, and I felt like very oppressive, very heavy. And a lot of people, excuse me, say that when they go. Mark himself had episodes of being in Hampton Court Palace and feeling really, really sick. And
well, he had pneumonia, did he not? Towards the end of his time there,
Henry, he died of a lot.
Wolsey.
Wolsey. Yeah. He was very, very poorly. And I mean, he carried a lot of weight as well, and they didn't eat the best diet, and they didn't take, you'd have held something. That's why they all walked around with oranges and handkerchiefs, because the smell was so bad. And the teeth, imagine what your mouth would have been like in you wouldn't really want to go near anybody and do too much. You just wouldn't, because it would. And when you go to Hampton Court Palace, I went there recently. I went there in September. They were saying sometimes up to 30 courses you could have at one sitting. Can you imagine that much food?
Oh yeah.
We've lost you, Scotty. You've disappeared. Your mic is off. It's just me and Dave.
I'm talking. I put it on mute because I was looking for that video and I was going to bring it up. And I don't want to go tappity on the mic. So I had my sound muted.
That's the place.
Deliberately.
We were going to tell you to come to London. It would be to Hampton Court Palace, because
well, that would be a place that I want to
go there.
It would fill your boots. I mean, the moment you get there to the moment, it's so much to look at.
I might wear my boots if I were to go there.
Well, I think you should dress the part, because they'll be like,
should.
Wow.
Who's in my castle?
Who's in my castle?
If you were Henry, Dave, which wife would you have?
Anne
Boleyn?
Yes. She was complete. I wrote a piece and I will get it published someday, but called Blood on the Rose. And it's all about the relationship between Henry and Anne. He's the woman that she's the woman that he truly loved.
She was, yes.
There was a real love there. Catherine was married out of duty.
Yeah.
And because his father wished it.
Although they did love each other.
I believe they did in the beginning, but I think that the age difference, and I think that the fact that she was not giving him living sons really soured that relationship.
She had 12 miscarriages. That woman tried. I mean,
I didn't say she didn't try. I'm just saying.
They had a son, and he died sadly a short while after. But I mean,
but all of the things she was accused of, that's complete framework. It's and you when you looking into the travels that were going on then that are documented, you have stuff going on in the Vatican where someone will be sent from the Vatican to England, and then within days Anne had a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Someone else is sent in there, and then these charges come up of incest and blah blah blah, and there's things that go back and forth. Now it goes the other way too. There were two men who were repeatedly sent to France and to the Vatican, and shortly after the so what happens is you have the trial that happens, the execution that happens, and then a period of time goes by. These gentlemen come back from the Vatican, and Henry loses his nut. He has the priests and priors drug into the streets and executed. He starts burning the churches and starts doing all this stuff. I think they brought back the evidence that she was framed and that she had been innocent. And that's where he turns on the church big time.
She
Sure.
never wanted to marry him anyway, and she tried very hard to get out of it. There's a lot of rumors that says, and history now has been updated here, but they're doing it all the time. But the fact is that she actually, people say that she married him for the sake of her family. Yes, of course, ultimately as a woman.
I think he wooed her. I think he won her over with the letters and things.
Yes.
She had another love that she wanted to marry, Harry Percy, and of Northumberland. I think he was Northumberland, but she wanted to marry him, and she was told, no, you can't. And so you imagine you have to marry someone, and she had to spend. She kept him waiting 7 years.
Yeah.
7
Yeah.
years and she didn't sleep with him for.
Yep, that is not someone who's just trying to get the crown.
Yep.
Like how she kept him busy for 7 years without, giving him the full Monty. I take my hat off to her because.
And a testament to his love for her, because he had no end of mistresses that he could have. If it was just about replacing Catherine, he would have replaced Catherine with somebody else.
He didn't take any mistresses when he and that just shows that love. And going back to our show we had the other day, relationships are the biggest thing, because why would he kill her?
Yes.
I mean,
well, again, it's
yeah.
He felt so betrayed, but I don't think that it was that. I think that she was railroaded by what's the other big family?
They're Seymours.
By the Seymours, and by Wolsey still at the time.
Well, Cromwell as well. Thomas Cromwell wasn't. I mean, although she'd helped to get Thomas Cromwell quite high up, he then turned against her as well.
And there were a lot of those guys that ended up being beheaded as well.
Well, the Boleyns,
and these two men that I talk of, they're just knights. They're referred to as Sir this and Sir that, right? They're I can't think of the names off the top of my head. But right after the purging that happens, he takes both of them and makes them both earls. That's a huge jump.
Yep.
To go from knight to earl in one fell swoop, if you will, with the knighting sword. And why? It's not really explained, but for deeds done for the king and country. And they are the ones that made all the trips back and forth to France and back and forth to the Vatican. And I believe they were his agents, or agents for the crown. They weren't his agents. They were
wanted as much evidence because the emperor also was involved.
Yep.
And also Catherine of Aragon's, I think it was her nephew, was indeed involved in it all. But they actually have the letters, the original letters from Anne Boleyn to Henry VIII at the Vatican.
Yeah.
They actually have them. But can you imagine, as you've married this man, you've tried to give him children. All right, she had her faults and failings. She wasn't perfect. They even rumors that they killed her little dog as well. Like they threw her dog out the window.
Well, and you have two popes that are poisoned in this time,
and
or as they wrote in the records, took ill and died.
She
suddenly took ill and died.
Her baby, her son, when he had the accident. So her miscarriage was brought on by the accident. But for her to know that the husband that she loved was going to behead her, and also marry her, and she knew it was coming, her lady in waiting, she knew they were waiting, but obviously the final revenge of her from the grave, if you had a revenge, was that her daughter became, probably apart from Elizabeth II, the greatest monarch England has ever had.
Exactly.
Right.
And good on her that she never married, because she kind of knew what that was, and I was reading about the checkers ring. The checkers ring is a very beautiful ring, and Elizabeth wore it. And when she died, it was taken from her finger and given to James I of Scotland to prove that she'd gone. And inside it was a picture of, it's all rubies, it's a beautiful ring, gold ring, but inside is a picture of Elizabeth I and another lady. Now, most of the portraits of Anne Boleyn were destroyed because Henry wanted them destroyed. And so a few survived, or a few people that knew Anne obviously would have kept some, but as you open up the ring, you'll see the two pictures, and one people believe it's Anne Boleyn, and another people believe it's Catherine Parr, because Catherine Parr was Henry's sixth wife. She was very close to Elizabeth. Elizabeth had lived with her for a while, and she was like a mentor. We're not actually sure if it's Anne Boleyn or Catherine Parr, but it could be one of those ladies. And because you see the famous picture of Anne Boleyn with the bee necklace, she's got the dark hair. That could be her, but no one really knows for sure. But, you know, I was also reading recently about how in the Victorian age, they dug up the chapel at the Tower of London. And they found obviously this lady's skeleton and perfect what figure it was, what size of her she was. And then Catherine Howard was also beheaded, but she didn't have the French sword, which would have done a clean, quick death. She had the sword, which would have been the axe, which would have been, and that very fascinating fact, very, very quickly, Catherine Howard, brave 17 or 16-year-old that she was, she asked for the block to be brought up to her room the night before her death, so she could practice putting her neck on it. So she would go queenly, you know, that she would, and I just think how brave she was.
She was a little tart, though.
She might have been, but even so, to go.
I don't think she was railroaded. I think she was a little tart. Anne was completely railroaded. And Matthew, you're mistaken, because Henry never accused her. She was accused of those things, but it was by the Henry's, Anne's enemies, but ultimately Henry's enemies as well.
I mean, she was accused of incest, yes, with her brother, which of course was a lie, all of it. And being a witch was a lie. It was, in fact, they all knew that she was going to die, because as she was arrested and being taken, they'd actually sent for the executioner of Calais to already come. So they knew that she was going to get caught. And I think Anne Boleyn, the greatest thing that Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII actually did is that they brought in divorce, because obviously they brought in, you know, it's weird, my computer just did something all on its own. Isn't that weird? I never even touched anything and my computer just brought up something all on its own. So I mean, what we're going to talk about on Tuesday, getting back to the subject, was actually something to do with the paranormal and one of the palaces.
I called it up. The one that we were talking about, the Hampton Court ghost. Now, I don't know what all you've heard about this, the Skeletor, they called it because of the look of the face. But supposedly in attempting to debunk this was caught on the CCTV cameras. They had gone through the whole routine of trying to figure out who this might have been and so on. And let me just play the video, and then I want to get your comment on it. Here we go. So take a look at this. There's the door. They fly open. This figure comes out and pulls them shut. Which, of course, we know. I'm going to play through it one more time. We know of
almost appears as though she's wearing a ruff, which is more Elizabethan.
Yep, ghostly figures or ghosts in the paranormal. We'll hear the banging. We'll hear doors. Doors will open and shut. Is this?
It looks more like Elizabeth, doesn't it? To me, especially with the extremely white face.
Banging on the floor. Good grief! I don't know if you guys heard that.
Yeah, I thought it was the doors banging
coming out of the ceiling.
The more I look at this, the more I think it seems more like Elizabeth than anyone else. I know they've tried to put it to. I
don't know. I'm not seeing an Elizabeth in there. Let's see. Let me play it one more time.
It looks like a ruff around the neck. The hair is up. The face is white.
It looked to me like there's a shift underneath and a fur collar.
I think
of a long fur-lined robe.
I think it's
Watch
more
very
of a ruff.
closely here. See if I can pause it. Right there.
That looks like a ruff.
See, to me, that
and
looks
long hair,
like fur around a hood. that's up.
I don't think
That's
it's a
either
hood. I
hair
think
or
that's
it's
her
a
hair.
hood that's pulled up, because that same fur goes down the front
When
and
you go
along
to
the
the
bottom,
palace, they
and
zoom.
on the cuffs as well.
So when you go to the palace, they show the video and they kind of zoom in on it a bit more. It's actually a coat, like a long gown
That's
coat.
what I thought.
And it's got like the fine on the drapes, which is because if you were royalty, you would have things on your
Yeah.
on that. But you're interesting. Yes, it does look like, but to me that looks quite masculine. That doesn't look feminine at all.
Yeah, and that's what I got out of that too. Tall, masculine. It looks like it almost looks like my bedspread.
It's up. I mean, there's obviously a hood up. That's not.
It
Well,
looks like my
and
bedspread with the pile lining in it.
I've heard
You
people
know?
refer to it as Jane, but I don't think it's Jane.
No, I don't think it's
I
Jane.
think
Jane would have been much tinier than that.
And obviously, like the people that watched this, they actually said it had the appearance of, they call it skeletal. They had the appearance because it wasn't a human face you were looking at. It was a apparition of some kind. But it happened just the once. I mean, but having said that, there's so many things that go on at Hampton Court Palace. You can actually stay the night there if you want, if you pay. I think it's like
really
something like £200 or something. They do it certain times of the year. I mean, they did. I'm not sure if they might be starting it up again, but you can stay, and you stay in a long gallery, and you stay. You have a sort of meal the night before, and then you kind of all bunk down.
have to reach out to Lucy Worsley and say, "Oh, please."
Yeah. But I
Yeah.
mean, I've actually done the ghost tour at Hampton Court Palace, and I've done it at night time. I've done it a couple of times. And they haven't done it yet, but they were like, do you want to walk down the haunted gallery on your own? And I'm like, absolutely, I do. But you're not allowed to use your phone or anything like that. You just, they're really hot on that. And when they take you out of the room and you go into the haunted gallery on your own, the smell obviously is the first thing, because it's very old and not really musty or anything like that, but it's quite, you smell it. What you feel is like they've got these little tiny lights very sort of low on the floor, so you obviously you're not walking around like this, and it's a very strange feeling. But for me, what I found was when I was on this ghost tour, the haunted gallery was nothing, but as I went past this room on the side, I was aware of something and somebody there, and like a group of people there, but there was no one there, obviously. But I felt like there was a group of people there, and as I turned, you can sort of see I could see an outline of them, and then and I kind of made me feel like, oh, I don't feel good about this. And as I went out of the gallery, you go into the Great Hall. And which is wonderful. The Great Hall is just so majestic. But, it's an amazing experience to actually have had that opportunity to walk down there, as a lot of people have, on my own, because just to be around, have that experience, to be in that time. And I often say, with hauntings or activities or whatever word you want to use, is it a time slip?
Yeah.
Is it a case that they're seeing us as much as we're seeing them, but we're just not aware of it? I think you have to not rule any of it out, because anything is possible.
When I was at Holyrood in the Queen's Chamber, there's up by the fireplace, just this sense of sadness, of almost hear weeping and wailing and such there. It's just very intense.
And I think it's interesting because when I went to Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump, which is completely different to Hampton Court, obviously it's out in Canada, that's where they do the vision quests. And they've got a beautiful museum there, which is like, shows all the native history. But you see where they actually, you can't go near it, but it's like, and you can just feel the energy change. It's all about, we're all connected by that thin red line, thin red strut, as they talk about. But it's an amazing thing to feel the energy. So when you're in Hampton Court Palace and your eyes are adjusting to the dark, you just stand there for a minute and you're taking it all in, and you just think, like, how terrifying it must have been for Catherine Howard to escape and run down the gallery, to bang on the chapel door, to beg for her life. She was a young girl. She'd always been used by her family for, she was used by her family
Sure.
for various different things. But you imagine how terrifying she must have been, that her husband, and obviously she was guilty of having an affair. That's obviously true. Having said that, being married to Henry VIII, one would actually wonder whether that would be whether one would stay faithful. I mean, you might want your neck to stay on your head, but from a
see, then it was a thing of treason for the queen to. The king could sleep with whoever he wanted to.
Yeah.
The queen could not.
No.
And that was, I think, all blood and lineage and children and all of this was wrapped up into that. Sarah Yusuf asks, would a time slip involve interaction with the physical world? And I think yes. Time slips. I've had people give of different accounts of. We spoke of one on the show last week, I think, or the week before, how even the ghost hunters, Jason and Grant, they had gotten that princess at the Mount Washington Hotel. The princess who used to come and stay there in the 1910s or the 1920s or something. I don't remember what country she was from, but in that room, they felt that they were interacting with some, because the voice would ask them, tell it who she was, and she'd say, "Who are you? Where am I hearing you from? Why am I hearing your voice?" He would ask them, "Who are you?" And they're thinking there was a time slip. And they took that opportunity to talk about those time slips.
Well,
and
they think I've heard a triangle, isn't it? They believe the Bermuda Triangle is one, that there's
some sort of portal.
A portal. And that's the thing with Hampton Court. Like, when you go there and you're walking around, I mean, everything's energy. It was, when you walk around and you think that was worn, that was touched, that was part of that time. But England is so full of old energy. It's quite weird. And I've just noticed what Grumpy just said. This ain't no Sunday talk. This is a show bonus.
Yes.
But it's fascinating, when you go there, like in the chapel at Hampton Court is the heart of Jane Seymour. It's buried underneath the chapel. And I didn't realize they'd actually taken out the organs of her as well, because everybody knows with King Henry VIII, well, actually some people might not, there was a rumor that he was going to be damned by the church, and the dogs would come and lick his blood from him or whatever. I can't remember the whole thing. I'll find it before Tuesday. And that's exactly what did happen. He was so full of fluid when he died, his body just went and exploded. And dogs came in. And dogs were found licking up his fluid. So, it's a very interesting, and you can't actually see his grave. I mean, it's at Windsor Castle, and it's just a placard. It's just which is such a shame. You think one of the greatest historical monarchs who gives us so much tourism, because everybody wants to know about Henry VIII and his 6 wives. And you can't actually see where you can go to. Where is it, Westminster Abbey, and see Elizabeth I's effigy. You can almost touch where she's buried. You can see where Queen Mary Tudor is as well. So fascinating.
It really is.
They have the location of Lady Jane Grey and Anne Boleyn's execution in the wrong spot, but
when I was there,
asks,
Tower of London, they've got the little block that's there, on the little brick square or slate square, and out in the yard right below the tower, and that's not the right place, but
not the right place.
But you can go visit their apartments. And you know what's very interesting, Dave? Not to cut you off, but Wendy, you've probably been here 100 times. But you go to the Tower of London. I think some of the very interesting things there. Not just the things you go see there, but you stand out in the yard where you've got the big tower, and then you've got all the apartments around the outside on the wall, and you can see where Anne Boleyn's apartment was, and all of those are now occupied by the the Royal Guard. What do you call them? The
Beefeaters.
There you go, the Beefeaters, and up behind the apartments, up on the wall, they had And I'm trying to remember, I think we got up there. I think you're allowed to go up there, but they are personal apartments in there now too of the guard, the Beefeaters. But it was Elizabeth's Walk. And so you can see it. You're standing in the yard there with the trees, and you're in between the tower behind you and the apartment of Anne Boleyn over in the corner there. And you look up, and you can see a little space in there where you can see there's a walkway on the wall, goes behind the apartments. And this was and I know we were up there because I got pictures of it, but this is where Queen Elizabeth, before she was queen, when she was kept at the tower, she would get up every morning and she would walk that little spot right there. And what's neat is that it's still there. But of course, they say now one end of it is cut off a little bit because they built a kitchen in for an apartment there for the Beefeaters in there, and that's all apartments.
You can't go to the Queen's Palace, which sadly I'd love to go and see, because that's where Oliver Cromwell, Thomas Cromwell, and all Henry's council would meet. And obviously before a monarch was crowned, they would stay at the Tower of London, and that's where it was. I mean, the thing is, when Anne Boleyn was killed, she was an anointed monarch. He had her anointed. Right. He wasn't just killing a wife, he was killing a monarch. Which he never did to any other wife after that. She was the only one that was, which shows how much he felt about her. But the interesting thing about the Tower of London, talking about it, is the Crays. I mean, people might have known about the Crays, Ron and Reggie Cray, that actually used to run the East End of London, and had quite a successful time before it came to an end. They were actually kept in the Tower of London when they were caught and arrested, and because they were twins, one was obviously, they were kept separate from each other. And I remember being told that they actually had this psychic link between them. They would, say a guard went into one and said, 4, 5, 6 to them or something like that. It wasn't said to the other twin, but when they went into the other twin knew what had been said. They actually had that uncanny link, and they were one of the last prisoners that were kept in at the Tower of London. And also the last execution at the Tower of London was in I think in the 1940s, was when they shot a spy, and you can still see the chair that he was sat on when they did it by a firing squad.
That's interesting. It's macabre, but it's interesting.
So I'm just going to say here, Elderberry had asked earlier if the portrait of me on Facebook has Henry VIII. No, but it's as the Duke of Norfolk, the character that I played out at Festival when I was Lord High Sheriff and Earl Marshal of the Realm. And so I do have a very Henry VIII sort of appearance in that, but we had a King Henry at the time, and he was a new actor that had been brought in to take the king spot, and his clothing was not very kingly. I often got mistaken for that. I was walking with the king one day, and this peasant ran up and dropped on his knees before us, looked at me and said, "Your Majesty," and started. And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" and turned him towards the king. His Majesty, see, pointy hat. He has a crown, and he's like, "Surely you jest, Your Majesty." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're gonna get my head taken off."
Nice.
You obviously feel drawn to him because you channel him so well.
I do channel him. Yeah.
It's like, what is it about him that you find so intriguing?
So I feel a connection to that court. I believe that one of my past lives was in that court. I don't believe I was Henry. I believe I was actually a court tailor. And in the transitional period between Henry and Elizabeth is where I think I fall in. But I am drawn to that period very much so.
And Scotty, are you drawn to it?
I've always been drawn to the Tudor era. As you know, when I wrote my very fanciful book, The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare, the backdrop to that is the conflict between Mary, Queen of Scots, and Elizabeth. And that conflict is going on. And I've, of course, done some very fictional things, taken some liberties with it to add to the story. But so I've been drawn to that. I'm drawn to Tudor era, I guess, is the best way to put it. That era, although you can go a little bit further back and a little bit further up in time. I've been drawn to something very different. Also, if we're going to talk to eras that draw us in colonial America, pre-Revolutionary War era, I've always been drawn to that period of time. And so those have been two big ones. And then, of course, Egypt. But I think that that's more, that became a thing after I went there. And after I spent so much time studying it, so it became a thing of interest. But then I had, if I've channeled anybody, it's the person that attached itself to me when I was there.
Well, but Egypt is so old. We all could have had lives there.
Sure, we could.
They say if you're drawn to a particular time in history, there is a very good chance that you were there. And I mean, Tudor England is somewhere that I've always felt drawn to, but so was Plantagenet, which was King John and Richard the Lionheart.
Yeah, I'm drawn to that. Well, I'm drawn to the Crusades.
Yeah. And obviously the Knights Templar and everything to do with all the stuff that came on, that's something else that draws me into. But also Egyptian, I love anything Egyptian. I'm one of these people that just go to a museum. I'm like, you guys carry on. I'm just staying here and looking at all the Egyptian side of things. Because I mean, I'm actually wondering, like, are they actually? I mean, they were so far advanced. Let's be honest. And there's talk about the Stargate and the pyramids and being a star map and everything else. I mean, you actually wonder, like, wow. And as were the Aztecs. The Aztecs were, and the fact that they actually built some of their pyramids, the Aztecs, with live people, sacrifices. I mean, my God, wasn't history a difficult time? We've got it easy in some ways.
Oh yeah.
I've had some past life regression stuff done, hypnosis type of thing, but years and years ago. And I always thought of myself as being someone that's not easily hypnotized. I get too analytical. I get too in my head. I never fall asleep, so hypnosis for me is a tough one, but I would get imagery in my head. And, some of this was even back before I really got into this stuff and started to try to understand it and research it out. And I remember seeing it was like think of a peasant's hovel, medieval to Tudor period, in that range of time. Wattle and daub, if you will, type of a structure, or, the kind where I think that's where they would take the sticks and interweave them for the walls and then pack them with manure and mud for insulation. It had that kind of a look to it. And I was a man, and there was a woman that was a wife there. There were a couple of animals, and I was told in hypnosis, look down at your hand and see what you see. And I looked, and there was a gold coin in my hand. And I thought, well, you're not going to come across those too often if you're a peasant. But there was a gold coin there. And I remember the imagery looked like, for lack of any better way to describe it, I felt it was England I was in. But take the Tower of Pisa. You know what that looks like, with the little coved windows, in rows. Take that and stretch that out a bit, and that was on the back side of the coin. All these.
Could it have been a bridge?
No, because there were too many tiers to
it.
And I thought I saw something very much like that with. There was a flag or a heraldry for Harwich or Harwich. I don't know how you say it. If you're in Scotland and you go down to the Firth of Forth. And there's the little harbor town there, Harwich. And there was something like that came up in some of my research, and I included Harwich in the book. But that's the imagery I got when I was supposedly regressed, and that's all that I got out of that. So I have no idea what the meaning was, where it was, who it was, if it was even real or just something my mind made up. And that's the whole thing with channeling. I think that's something I'd probably like to try, which I've never considered it, because I'd like to see who comes up. But I also don't want to open myself up too much. You want to invite in somebody that's not allowed there. But
I mean, regression is a weird thing to have. I've been regressed a few times now.
What did you get?
I find it very hard to go under. I think I'm very much. I'm one of these people that even have an operation, I find it very hard to let go. And they're kind of like trying to knock me out. And I'm like, no. But when I had a regression, I had it done twice. It was one of the most scary ones I had was that they brought me down eventually, and then it's you, it's Wendy lying there listening. You absolutely know it's you in your body, but you can't open your eyes and you can't move easily, and you just feel incredibly like a weight that's
yes.
And all I could hear was this noise, this like a sway, like something being spun or swayed. And I remember it were like when you open your eyes, or not me open my eyes, but in the regression, when you open your eyes, tell me what you see. And I just saw an incense bowl being swung from the ceiling. And I was a guy, and I was hiding down right at the back, and I could smell it. I could smell the incense, and I have a feeling it was in France. And they were like, "Tell me what you see," and I was like, "No, I just want to get out of it. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be found." I was really, and you feel these emotions.
Yeah, you feel the frantic energy.
And then literally, they took me out into another one, but that was the first one because it was so clear. I could hear the ball. I could smell it. I could hear them chanting. Singing. It was like being Georgian monks, something like that.
That was like when I had that, what I call the vision in Egypt, where I saw the priests. I heard the chanting. I felt the breeze. I could smell the incense. All of that stuff went on during that particular thing. And there's that connectivity there. And so I don't know, was I seeing a vision of something I experienced in the past? Was it something that somebody was trying to show me that they experienced? Or just opening me up to the period. So that's the stuff that's hard to decipher sometime. Some people, you got to have somebody along, with you when you do that stuff that can say,
yeah, absolutely.
Well, here's what you're supposed to do.
I got a question, Wendy. So it kind of sounds like when you're talking about this regression, I haven't been yet. I really want to be. But it's almost like someone taking you on an OBE out of your body.
Yeah. What does it feel like? Sorry, as Henry distracted me here. Say that again.
So does it feel the same as an OBE?
I think we've all had those episodes where you do you ever find the thing where you're floating above your body, or you feel like you're lifted and then you thud right back into it? It wasn't like that at all. It's very much like you're lying down, you're incredibly relaxed, you just cannot open your eyes, you feel quite heavy in yourself but very relaxed. But you're moving your head, you're moving your head and your eyes, and you're looking around the whole time at stuff, and you're smelling it. You can feel it, you can feel it. But when I came round from it, it felt like I'd just seen it. It just felt like I'd witnessed myself watching it. That's what it felt like. But some of it was quite emotional, very, very emotional. It was like, I've watched other people have them as well, and I've seen them come to tears by what they're actually experiencing. And you do wonder. You think, is it? Am I witnessing a former life, or what am I witnessing? You just, you have to have that open mind.
Yeah, that's what I want.
The thing that's held me back on this is because I'm a writer and a filmmaker. I have a very vivid visual imagination. I can see things, right? And so, and I've done a huge amount of study into these periods that I'm drawn to. So my thing is, will I know if I'm really experiencing something, or if my subconscious is just giving me the show I expect to see? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. But I mean, when I went down, because I wouldn't go under because I was so scared. I wanted to go under, but I was so scared I fought it. So it took them 40 minutes for me to actually start to go under, because you have to get to yourself where you actually are in a very relaxed state, and your Wendy is still there, and she's still aware of everything that's going on around her. She can smell, she can, but then all of a sudden it's like there's a second person with you, but is you. And it's very hard to describe it, but it's almost like you're someone else. Like I was this person in an abbey somewhere, with this, and you feel what they feel. And then, you start to wonder. I was watching something the other week, and I mentioned it to you, Scotty, where they were saying that when we die and we, go on to another life, which you obviously have a choice whether you want to do that or not. We see our lives or whatever flash past us, what we've done, and we also know where we've come from and what we're down here to learn and what we're here to learn about. And so each life brings us a different lesson. Some of it not so good, some of it very, very good. And the more true saying, the more difficult your life is, the more higher up you are, like the more lives you've probably had, and you're on the way up to coming up to the, for you not to come down anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still learning all this, I might be doing this, but I'm still learning it, and I keep very much an open mind.
Well, what do you think of this? Sarah Yusuf asks, is forcibly reliving a past life helpful? If we have forgotten certain things, it must have been for a reason. Could doing it re-traumatize a person in a different way?
You should never force anything. You should either want to do it or not.
Right.
But if you go somewhere and something comes back as a memory, you can't stop that.
Right. But see, part of our purpose is we don't remember the past lives because each time we come back, this life is supposed to be the life that's the one we're focusing on.
Right.
And so we're not intended to remember, though often we do. We have a lot of cases where, especially when they're children, because the veil is so thin, you haven't been back for very long, and that veil between us, the corporeal life, and the ethereal life is very thin. So a lot of times kids will remember things from their past lives. That's part of how mine started. I remembered things from a past life when I was a young child. And I remember drowning, and I remember other things that I was a sailor at the time in World War II, and I had a girlfriend, and we did things that I, as a 5-year-old, had no concept of. Okay. And not until I lost my virginity many years later, I'm like, and I sat up and went, that is exactly the same experience.
Why was she naked?
I
understand that.
But I had all these vivid dreams as a 5 and 6-year-old, and still to this day, I can remember this woman's face. I can remember conversations with her from these dreams, and I remember my drowning in our ship. But I also remember shore party things that were missions that were done where I wasn't in my dungarees and stuff, but was wearing sort of that sea green fatigues like the Marines wore, but it wasn't my everyday wear. And so, but places where we went ashore, and we were wearing fatigues instead of our dungarees and stuff.
Well, I think children remember it, as you say, because up to the age of 7, the veil is obviously like it's still, and there's that famous case of the little boy that remembers himself as a pilot.
Yep, as a fighter pilot.
Exactly.
I also have a lot of memories of being in the film industry at that time. I believe that when the war came around, I left Hollywood and enlisted, and I've always had, from the time I was super little, a connection to all these films from MGM and stuff like that, and Fred Astaire and Laurel and Hardy and all those people. Like, I knew those people, okay, even as a little kid. And one of my writing partners used to always give me a hard time because I could name off the top of my head all kinds of stars from the 20s and the 30s and such, and can't name contemporary actors worth a damn. It's not there. But I often wonder if my draw to the film industry in this life was a holdover because my life was cut short in the last life and I didn't get to accomplish things I wanted to accomplish.
Interesting.
Maybe. Romeldian, how you doing?
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I am good.
Pardon me.
Yeah, I find this whole topic very interesting, especially with this being my last reincarnation here on Earth. That is
I'm in my
something
last
I
one
always
too.
knew- That
So
is
far.
something I always knew as a child that this was going to be my last one.
Oh, you're
especially
talking
after
about your final. You
Yes, my final.
Okay. All right. How do you know that? What do you know that tells you that?
Just something deep in my soul that resonates. I am completely done, and everything that it had been. I kept asking for signs to show up, and everything that I've been watching, the way the world's been going, I just knew this was my completion. It was supposed to be back in World War II, were my last reincarnation, but I got
But you slipped out and you came back again.
yeah, a lot of regret because I did not listen to my intuition.
Mm.
Because I was supposed to be done at the Christmas truce, but I got pulled in World War II because I did not listen to a psychic medium telling me not to go back, otherwise. Because your mission was at the truth, helping to make way for the next generation to show there's a better way of doing this. But sadly, I did not because there is so much trauma around there. And every time I study history, there are places where I can point out where exactly I have been. France has not been kind to me, especially with World War One, where I got court-martialed for helping with the truth. They wanted us silence because they did not want that out there.
What kind of truth are you referring to? A truth of
1914.
spirituality, of war, of
1914. Christmas almost saved Europe.
Armistice of Christmas.
Not truce.
oh,
Truce,
truce.
sorry.
A truce. Okay.
Armistice, yeah.
I just so happen to be one of the higher up ranking where it's like, oh, we can court martial you and silence you, compared to some of the lower ranking members where we can just divide them up and send them elsewhere on the battlefield.
Do you know who you were back then? Do you have a
No,
name?
I do not.
Okay.
There's too much trauma around there. The last thing I remember was being on the Enterprise, and then lights out.
I'm the captain of the Enterprise, so I'd have seen you there.
I think he
No,
means
I'm
the
kidding.
aircraft carrier.
Yes, I figured. Being lighthearted.
My grandfather was 15 when he signed up for the First World War.
Really?
His brother had gone in, and because obviously we're coming up to that next Sunday, but his brother had gone in, and he didn't want to be left behind. He didn't want to be seen as as it was back then, the coward, So he was 15 when he signed up, and he saw some horrendous. It's the most horrendous things going, and I always think, like, that was such a traumatic time of history. When you have a life that's very traumatic and you come out of it with that trauma, you take that trauma with you. Obviously, like we, in all our lives, we go on to our lives with trauma. And that's why sometimes we're drawn to something, not because, sometimes we might be like, I just can't go in there. I can't do it, because there's something there that we can't tap in. Imagine if we did remember everything, we would be like,
oh yeah,
too much for our human brain to actually deal with. And there's that whole 10% of the human brain that we do not use, which is probably where they think is our psychic ability, where everything is remembered. But the 1914 Christmas armistice, I think is the right word for it. It was the only time it ever happened in the world, where they all put their guns down and shook each other's hand and swapped notes and pictures and chocolates and everything. And the Germans and the English and etc. were
just done with the fighting.
It was a wonderful time, and it's never happened again. And I think that they call it the war to end all wars. Well, sadly, it wasn't, and we've learned nothing from it. And we still treat people in the most horrendous ways all this time on. But I think if you come out of that life and you go very quickly, and you have it very traumatic, you will take that. And sometimes you can meet someone. You meet someone, you're kind of like, something about that person, I just don't feel
connected to them.
Yeah, and it's like you can't pinpoint it, because they say that we've all, like Scotty and Dave and Remy and all of us, like we've all known each other before, we've all been connected, but we can't remember it. Like you're interested to go to England, both Scotty and Dave, because you're drawn to it. You don't know why, but it calls to you. I'm drawn to go to Egypt and to America because I'm drawn to go to see the South. So what is that we're not? And it's good to have an open mind, because I know some people aren't convinced of having past lives, which I can see with Elderberry down there. And that's a good way to be, because at the end of the day, life is for living and finding out. Go and have a regression and see what happens,
Yeah, I wanted to find my soul origin, like where I came from.
Yeah.
And the first time I did that was by watching Supernatural.
Yeah.
Because I was watching it was season 4, and someone told me to study Lilith. Mm-hmm. And that's about the same time I found Scotty Roberts' channel. And that spirit or
I'm not Lilith, by the way.
No, she just told me to go to Lilith, because Scotty will bring me to somebody who is a aspect of Lilith. And Scotty already knows who that person is, and that person is Motherella. And that's how I got onto my journey of finding my soul origin.
Yeah.
And how I found out this is my last time here on Earth.
I always say, like, if you want to watch that film, What Dreams May Come, with Robin Williams, it's a very good film. It might not be
spot on to what the other side is like.
It's pretty spot on. I mean, the fact is that, although some of it could be said not so, but obviously they put some in for artistic theme. But you do have a choice if you want to come down again. You don't have to come down, but you do have a choice if you want to help other people, and or you want another lesson. And I'm not sure I want to come down again. I think this life has been quite difficult. And
how many lives do you suppose, though, we've had
I would
those
say
same exact feelings? I'm done. I don't ever want to have to come back again. Now, maybe we weren't as enlightened to it as we seem to be nowadays, more open to it. But
we're enlightened because we've been back so many times.
Right. Well, that's the going theory. So we've been back so many times.
So much darkness that we just want to heal from it, and we're just tired of it.
And also, you can sit out there and help other people as well. You don't have to come down here. You've learned so much down here. But I think that they talk about the fact that before you come down here, you know exactly who you're going to be with, exactly who you're going to meet,
exactly
what you're going to experience. And some of it isn't so good, because I think if we were to remember it, we would be like, oh my God, I'm not coming.
I was saying with Keith last night, it's sometimes, so maybe you come back and you're a serial killer. Why are you? That seems like a horrific thing, but maybe you're there to help somebody deal with the loss of somebody who loses a loved one that way.
But if you even use, dare I say the word, even if you use Hitler there had to be a Hitler for the world to come together, and for them to do what, it was terrible what he did. But at the end of the day, the outcome of that, and sadly, we've learned nothing over the last couple of years because we're still being ostracized and kept apart from each other and treated differently. Because if we don't see it go along with mainstream,
is that possibly a master plan of something that does not represent what is good and light?
Well, there is
so behind the scenes, there's that aspect of this as well.
The Great Reset.
Well, I don't believe in the devil, but evil is real.
See, the thing about the devil is that, I always
just so happen to be from Eden.
What's that, Remeldian?
I just so happen to be from Eden.
You be what?
I was from Eden. I am part of that original bloodline.
Oh, the Edenic bloodline?
Yeah, I'm part of that original bloodline.
Aren't we supposedly all part of that Edenic bloodline?
That's why I have the title Elder in my name.
Okay.
Because I was the one there to teach that tribe how to be human.
Okay.
And there were not just 2 people. There were actually 20.
It's funny, Mark doesn't believe in the devil either. And it's like, I always say, well, you can't have good without bad, dark without light, yin without yang. You've got to have the two. But obviously Lucifer is, was God's favorite angel. And when he opened his wings, the music came out. And he was
but of course,
light bringer.
At the same time, Satan, if there was a Satan and a Lucifer, he still was not the yin and the yang to God, because there was God, and then you had Lucifer, a created being. Yeah. He was a created being. He wasn't an equal and opposite to God. Like, they were 2 created beings, and they were equal and opposite of each other, at least theologically speaking. So I think that's why I think evil can exist without the presence of a devil or a Satan.
Right. That's my thought too. I don't believe in the devil, but I do believe
an agent
evil is real.
Not the embodiment of.
I dated a few of them, Dave. I've got to be honest. I've dated a few of the devil in my time, so I would probably say it exists. But I always love
the essence of evil is real. Evil lives within us. Yeah. If we let that out. But I don't believe in the horned god, the horned red-skinned fork-tailed devil thing. Well,
I think he might exist, but I don't think he's an equal and opposite to God.
Well, don't forget you've got Pan. Yeah. Like, Pan was one of our pagan. He was the horned.
Exactly. That's where that mythos comes from. They're taking a pagan thing and trying to demonize it and such.
And then you have. Even going to Herne the Hunter, which, people talk about Herne, with the
yes. Melvin, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for calling in. I'm going to bring Sarah in. See you later, brother. All right. Here we got Sarah. How you doing, Sarah?
Hey, guys. I can't have you talking about philosophy without me.
I know.
That's right.
So, 2 things, since we just lost Remeldi, and I wanted to, talk to him about a second about, like he says about not only generational trauma, but, as someone we've all had on some level experienced some form of trauma and whatnot, but we have to realize that as human beings and as we have the ability to transform that traumatic energy into something else, and through giving and receiving of compassion. So when we're saying, like, yes, we go through all these cycles of trauma, and we're not learning our lesson each time around.
Absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah. When we're going through, like whether it was through 9/11 or Hitler or World War I, World War II, any major traumatic event. Even you guys were talking earlier about Henry VIII. Is through those traumas there were opportunities of compassion. We can look back at the time of Henry VIII. It was a very different time culturally, especially for women. Would you think that people who believed that they had experienced the same trauma as Anne Boleyn or any other woman who was abused at that time would become the future feminists? How many times do they take her name in vain, as far as, trying to make a recorrection, or as you want to call it, a particular.
And I think that's why we meet people time and again and again and again. If we don't learn that lesson, you're very, very good point. If we don't, sometimes we meet someone and we come down to finish our karma or to finish that trauma with them, to clear it, and we don't. And it's like, we have to clear it one way or the other. And I think it's when, you meet people again in a lifetime. And although I've had regression, I remember what I've been regressed about. Before that time, I didn't remember anything because obviously we're blocked from remembering. But imagine if we did and we met that person again, say, for instance, in another incarnation in front of us, and you're like, and they have no idea who they are. They don't know who they are. And we know it could prove it very, very awkward. So it's an interesting subject to talk about because it
really
is endless.
Yeah.
And I hate to say, now that you've joined us, Sarah, we're going to have to almost leave it there for now. Maybe until Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Or Tuesday afternoon when Wendy and I talk about this again. If you're around at 4 p.m.
Yeah, I'm at work.
Central,
So
5 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
10 p.m. London time. You can join us, and we'll talk about this a little bit. So
yeah, it'll be either in the evening or on the weekend because
it's really nice to connect with you, Sarah, and we've obviously got quite a bit in common.
Well, I mean, the subject matter is fascinating, and
it is. It's fascinating stuff. Well, we'll have to do this again then, when we can all talk, and
we'll do it on Tuesday show.
What's that? Oh, yeah, Tuesday show. Yeah. So we'll be doing this on Tuesday, folks. So join Wendy and I for Robertson on Tuesday afternoon. If you're stateside, it'll be 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, and then, of course, 10 p.m. London time, when we can still get Wendy before she turns into a pumpkin. And so...
Well, it's been fun being part of you guys today. Thank you for
I'm so glad you came in. You should do
I am too.
More regularly.
I was just saw you guys on. I thought I'd come in and say hello. But I will see you all on Tuesday for sure, Scotty.
And I'll probably talk to you just a little later, and
well, sweet dreams to you.
Well, I'm not going to bed yet. It's only 5 o'clock in the evening.
No, it's only 5 there. Yeah, I keep thinking we're on the later show, but
no, I will not be on. I tend to watch the later show sometimes if I wake up and occasionally pop on. But it's so nice today I could be part of it. So I'm looking forward. Tuesday's going to be really exciting. We've had great feedback from the Tuesday show. One of my friends over here just said to me, "When's the next one coming on?" Because
all right, that's good to know.
That. So it's like it's getting good feedback. So I'm really excited about that.
Fantastic.
Well, congratulations to you both for your successes. So
well, thank you, Sarah.
That people like it, because if they didn't like us, we wouldn't be able to. So thank you.
That's it. So,
all right. See you later.
Thank you, Sarah. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Wendy, see you later too. Oh, she's gone. And it's just you and me. Dave?
Yep. I got to race off to a football game.
All right. Well, you have fun.
All right. Take it easy.
See you later. I'm going to go join the family. All right, folks. Thanks for being here and all of that good stuff. Remember, Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern, the Intrepid Radio program. And, of course, Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, Robertson. So join us for all this fun stuff lined up this week. And we'll talk to you again soon. I appreciate your being here. You have a good day. Live long and prosper.